How did you get by the laser field in the Great Hall?
Aha. The laser fields. Well.
Morning. Wait until there's that number goes up to something past 0, which will happen like that for some reason. There seems to be like a that happens. I don't quite get it. Some delay between StreamYards. There we go. See, smoke weeds here. There. See, it's just like I don't know what happens. It's like some delay between YouTube and the StreamYard crap software, which is American, which is probably something else out of somewhere else. Anyway, won't touch that one. Actually, I know that. Morning, Francis. Morning, Nova Scotia citizen. Clownadian. News. Sean O'Vision. Craig Kelly. Good old Kelly. Well, good. That's a bad term to use with women, isn't it? It's not that she's old. Why does it appear as though I have a red dot on my head? Maybe I beat myself up in the shower. I don't know. How are you guys doing? You guys been boiling the last few days? Nice heat wave across Canada. Oh, started off right. Oh, I forgot to bring up my change. Misfit boy, top of the morning to you. Top of the morning. I like it a lot. I'm that Robin Williams line. But that's probably just because I like Vietnam. So, Aussie. Okay, so there was a show this morning. Rick did. Sorry, not Rick. Paul emails me things and tells me, when he's going to have an article or something. Thank you, Paul, because I think he does watch. Yes, which is nice. So of course he said he was going to be on this morning, and I have a hair in my mouth. Yeah. And I didn't. Well, I don't know. I couldn't get up. Oh, those pictures. I wanted to show those pictures. I know that there was somebody down at the protest. Is there a way to show that? They had 2 pictures, and somebody else dropped a whole bunch in the. But I wanted to show that because they did specifically send it, and they were having some issues, and I really appreciate how much they went out of their way. No, that's not what I want. Can I do it this way? No, that's not the way I'm going to do it. Okay, can I do it this way? Okay, this is not going to show their name. So they had 2 pictures. I'm very thankful, of course, always, and will share whatever I can. Can I open it just like this? There we go. Here is one. They don't wish to be known who it is, and that's cool. Totally respect that. Sound. Is there no sound? Okay, there's sound. There should be sound. I know I made a joke. With Kelly, and she laughed. So Kelly heard me. Rum and Coke? No, I don't drink. Sean O'Vision. Is that, who is that? We were discussing that the other day, somebody and I. Jonovision. You guys remember Jonovision, or is that too old? Your speakers. Serene. Hello, Serene. Haven't seen you in a long time. So this was one picture down there at the ferry terminal to the, what do you guys call it? The provincial house. I don't want to get this wrong. I sound like terrible. You don't drink either? I drank enough for a lot of people, so I'm okay. So there's one beautiful photo they sent, and we will get the next one. And there were some in the Discord. Thank you. Here is the next one. Wow, look at that. Throngs of media. Province House. I got it. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, Jono Vision. Jono Vision. Yeah, he comes from down there. Apparently he lives right around there. Anyway. Okay, so Paul P was on this morning, as was Dr. Mackay. Wayne Mackay from Dalhousie. No idea what he wants to say. Could he be one of the good guys? Is he one of the bad guys? I don't know. There seems to be divided over there in the Dalhousie, unfortunately. But I know there was. I think he's probably one of the good guys because he's from the School of Law. The law faculty was pretty pissed off right at the beginning of all this and was sending all kinds of letters to Trudeau. Is it cool not to drink now? Well, I'm not fucking cool, I'll tell you. I'm not cool. Anything but. PEI. Well, he lives down there, though. He lives in Nova Scotia. Or so I understand. It's got a very nice place. So as I told, anyways, it's cool to be hip old toker. Okay, well, yes, Weed, your name kind of gives you away. It doesn't say that you're old, though. But, yeah, I think the weed part is included. All right, now, enough of my babble. Did you guys hear this morning? I'm going to be repetitive, obviously, for some people. But those of you who haven't, Onslow, that's where Jono Vision works. Maya, hello. Good morning to you, Maya. Jono over there in the Onslow. You smoke cannabis as well, smoke. Okay, there's a lot of weed smoking. That's awesome, I guess. I'm not a weed smoker. Can't say that I never have done that. We'll leave my past out of my past. But everybody, all the more power to you, whatever makes you happy. Now, let's get on with Rick Howe, Mackay, Dr. Mackay, and Paul P. Let me know if the sound's okay, please.
Nova Scotia. And how are you on this sunny start to a Thursday morning? It is 9 o'clock right now. Hi, and welcome to our show today. I'm Rick Howe with you until 12:30 this afternoon. And here's what we've got coming up on the show for you today. There's a new clue about where that old photo purported to show the seconds after the 1917 Halifax explosion was taken on board a ship that is still anchored here in Halifax Harbor. We'll hear from historian and author Joel Zemmel this morning. Retired Globe and Mail reporter Paul Palango will join me this morning with his thoughts on the government's decision now to hold a public inquiry rather than a review into the mid-April shooting spree that left 22 dead, and what questions he thinks the inquiry should answer about RCMP action during and after the rampage, something he has called an epic police failure. We'll go to the phones at 10 for another open hour. Of course, as always, in our open hours, anything goes. It's the last Thursday of the month. That means it's time to play some trivia, Canadian trivia, that is. We've got a bunch of new questions for you, and we'll put your knowledge of things Canadian to the test coming up after the news.
If it doesn't have anything to do with the dildo sickle, I could answer it.
2020 Mars mission that blasted off just moments ago from Cape Canaveral this morning. St. Mary's astrophysicist Rob Thacker will join me. An archaeologist and historian David Jones is back with another Nova Scotia history lesson for us this afternoon. 9:02 right now, but first up this morning, how will this public inquiry into the mid-April murder spree work? Will the panel leading the inquiry determine who the witnesses will be and what questions will be asked? Will all the testimony be public? Will witnesses be compelled, that is, forced to testify? And will it be under oath? Joining me to start off our day this morning is one of the leading voices that has been urging the province to launch a public inquiry. He is law professor Wayne Mackay, and he joins me on the phone to start off our day here today. Wayne, good morning to you.
Good morning, Rick.
And how are you this morning, sir?
I'm good. Another nice sunny day. Maybe going to get a little warm, but nice.
Yeah, and it'll cool off over the next couple of days as well, so it won't be quite as hot and muggy. And boy, it's just
Exactly.
perfect kind of weather. I guess first question, Wayne, is how surprised were you when the province and the feds did an about face and announced an inquiry as opposed to the review they had earlier announced?
Well, I think shocked would probably be the best term in many ways, because he had shown very little and no signs of moving on this, in spite of the many loud voices calling for a full public inquiry. And they seem to be digging in, and then suddenly the province first and then the feds equally fast did a complete reversal. So I was very surprised.
And as I mentioned, your voices was one of the many that I think had a factor in this, though the Premier, I think, referred to you and other academics as nitpickers, I believe this week was the term he used.
I think occasionally nitpicking pays off.
Occasionally it does. So how's this thing going to work, Wayne? Tell me how you see this whole inquiry getting underway, and who will make the determination about what witnesses will be called, what questions will be asked, those kinds of things.
Well, one of the really positive things about the fact that we do now have a public inquiry under a statute, the Public Inquiries Act, is that it does give the commissioners much more independence. They don't decide the terms of reference. That's a big issue to still be decided, and we now know the 3 panelists are going to become commissioners under the Public Inquiries Act.
Boom!
That's good news, I think, because they're good people. What we don't know, I haven't heard it yet, is whether they're going to adopt the exact same terms of reference, which goes to your what questions they'll ask.
Very bad.
Terms of reference was one of the few really positive things about the review. The questions or the issues identified, not so much the full term, but the issues identified were the right ones, and I'm hoping those are the questions they'll ask. In terms of who decides who they hear from and precisely what kinds of lines of questioning they'll do, is that's really all up to the commissioners and the legal counsel and staff around them that will be doing that. So that's one of the huge benefits of this, is that it really, once the terms are set and the public inquiry is appointed, then it's really up to them to run the show independently.
But there's no reason to believe that they'll somehow change the terms of reference. You're right, the terms of reference for the review were quite detailed, so there's no reason to think they change that, is there?
I wouldn't think so, although I think that's one of the things, being a little suspicious / nitpicky.
Yeah.
I would say that we want to keep an eye on exactly what the terms of reference are in terms of the issues identified, because for those who are suspicious about some of this, maybe some of the things they were happy to have on the agenda when it was going to be behind closed doors, will they still keep it on the agenda when it's going to be open to public scrutiny? I hope so. And I think you're absolutely right. Having identified the issues, to now take something off the table would be pretty problematic. So I would say that's something to watch for. Have a list of the issues as set out in the review and see if all of those are still going to be on the public inquiry.
Indeed. And when there is testimony, this will all be in public, right? There's no behind closed doors, no secret sessions for an inquiry like this, is there?
That's basically correct. It is a public inquiry, so the normal rule is public. The testimony, all of that kind of thing. The deal can be confidential documents that have to be confidential, for example, to protect the identity of informants, or to not interfere with criminal investigation and those kinds of things. And they can occasionally, although it is the exception, have in-camera sessions, which is one way that the public inquiry may be able to deal with some of the more sensitive family issues where there's no great value in having that information public, and it would be easier to do it in a sort of more in-camera component. But that's
And any witnesses that are called on to testify will be under oath. Is that not the case?
That is absolutely the case. They will be testifying under oath. They now have the power to compel witnesses and to compel the production of documents and the power to issue subpoenas with the legal consequences for anyone who does not follow that subpoena. If somebody resists coming to testify, then they can be subpoenaed and legally required to do so. So all of that being extremely important in this situation.
At the pain of what? I mean, what kind of repercussion could there be? Contempt of
Very,
court?
very significant.
Ongoing
And
investigation.
in cases even, I believe, imprisonment. So it's a serious matter to not follow a court subpoena.
Would it be similar to, again, a court of law where the Crown could treat one of their own witnesses as a hostile witness kind of thing if someone is reluctant, I guess, to, spill the beans, so-called?
To some extent, that's true. The rules of evidence for a public inquiry are a bit more flexible, so they don't have to be sort of tightly following court-type evidence rules, although that's the starting point usually. So they can certainly, they have more leeway in a sense. So while they wouldn't have to, I think, declare them, for example, a hostile witness, which does make a big difference, but they could operate as though that were the case. So there's a lot of flexibility. And the key thing, really, as I started off with, is that the commissioners get to decide how that operates. And given that we have the well-respected former Chief Justice MacDonald chairing it, and McClellan, who's certainly well-informed legally, and I don't know if the third person, the former Chief of Police, is legally trained, but it doesn't matter. There's certainly lots of legal expertise, and especially in the chair, to make sure that things are done in the proper way.
Yeah, you mentioned the terms of reference are all important. Who determines that? Is this the Premier or the federal government, or a combination of the two?
Combination of the two, that the provincial government and the federal government decide on the terms of reference. And it may be that, and again, if not for anyone asking questions of the Premier and so on, it may be that they've already decided that they're going to keep the same issues that they have. I believe some of the process restrictions and confidentiality requirements were also in the terms of reference. So obviously those will not and should not be kept. But I think that's the next thing to really focus on, is to be sure that the terms of reference are broad and cover the kinds of issues laid out in the review, because there was a good list of the broad range of questions that needed to be asked, including things like domestic violence and government agency interaction. Most of the big issues were there, and I hope those will all be there for the new process as well.
You mentioned the three panelists led by Justice MacDonald will be the panelists for this inquiry, and I'm assuming they'll have the right to ask their own questions alongside their legal counsel, who will do most of the questioning, I suppose. But there are groups that will be given standing, will there not? The family members, for example, which gives them the opportunity to also ask questions, doesn't it?
Well, exactly, and that's another huge benefit for the new process over the previous one, is that it is more like a court process. People can apply for standing, and once they get standing, can be represented at the inquiry, so they can usually do have their own lawyers. And as you rightly pointed out, the commissioners themselves get to ask questions, and because it is not a sort of formal court process, they're kind of freed up more to do have a bit of more active role than would be the case in a court proceeding, which, given the situation, is a good thing, I think. And definitely the families would be ones that would pretty clearly have standing to raise issues, and other groups, perhaps women's groups, might get standing to raise some of the domestic violence issues, or you could think of any number of possible interventions and people who want to have a say.
Do you think there's a feminist slant to this? That I know that some of the groups are suggesting that this needs to be looked at from a feminist point of view here in regards to domestic violence or violence against women. But again, I think of the total number of deaths, there was almost an equal number of men and women who were killed, perhaps a little more.
Don't fall in this trap. Don't fall into it.
Women, but not the number wasn't much more than the number of men who were killed.
That's true. I think what people are focusing on, which is a good point, is that perhaps one of the early incidents was the domestic violence in relation to the gunman's own common law spouse. And so that's an all too familiar pattern in Nova Scotia, I think. And also, I mean, who knows? And that's why we need this inquiry. One of the recent revelations that seem to be daily about the gunman is that now someone's described him as a sexual predator, among other things. So we don't. Well, those are the kind of things we'll find out. I believe I'm right in saying that the panel or the commissioner now, former chief of police, he does have quite a bit of experience on issues of family violence and that kind of thing. So that's a good thing. And so I think there will be some kind of a feminist lens involved here as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe, if memory serves me correctly, that was right in the terms of reference in some way, maybe not that precise language. So if they adopt the same terms of reference that the review had, then that will be part of the guiding principles of the inquiry.
Should Anthony just tweeted as we
no.
talked here this morning, Wayne, he wonders whether we should have had an actual judge, a sitting judge, as opposed to a retired judge head up this inquiry. Does it really make that much of a difference?
I don't think it does. I mean, first of all, even though mostly under public inquiries, they are sitting judges or it's in some cases retired judges, but that's not required. And so, for example, if the former chief of police from Fredericton is not, that doesn't matter. And I think the main point, though, practically speaking, for the chair, even though former Chief Justice MacDonald is retired, he's very recently retired, and somewhat like myself, a bit of an active retired. And so I would be pretty confident that he hasn't lost any of his edge as far as running a court type appropriate proceeding. I'm totally happy with that.
And before I let you go, this is not going to be something that's going to be wrapped up in a few short weeks. This is something that could be a couple of years before we get a final report from this commission.
That's absolutely the case, and maybe even longer. But there's a couple of positives about that. One, hopefully then all the evidence from the criminal investigations, as we talked about earlier, will be in by the time they have to report. And the other thing is, because it's public all along the way, we'll be getting information coming out of the inquiry probably on a almost daily basis when they're sitting. So while it'll be a while before we get the final word, we'll be getting lots of words right along the way.
Well, listen, as always, I appreciate your expertise, sir, and your time here this morning. Thanks very much, Wayne Mackay.
No problem. Anytime, Rick.
You have a great day. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That is Professor Wayne Mackay with a look at how this inquiry might work when they get it up and going. And again, no date yet, but they just announced it just the other day. It is coming up to 9:15. Herb just tweeted, by the way, not one word about our worthless PM testifying today from Rick. The silence is deafening, writes Herb. Well, you conservatives are an impatient group. This is just the first interview of the morning here. We got 3.5 hours of show to go here yet. Give me a chance, buddy. Holy macaroni. 9:15. We'll be back with more right after this. 9:18. Catching any of the ball games yet? About the fans in the stands and some of the different rules. I like the rule where they start off in extra innings or runner on second base. It's an interesting rule. It kind of going to take some getting used to, I guess, like the shootout in hockey. But I've been watching some of the old Montreal Expos games. Last night I watched the game number 3 in the 1981 National League Championship Series against the LA Dodgers. A complete game victory for Steve Rogers. He pitched 9 innings and beat the Dodgers 4-1. This again.
Okay, so I'm just going to interlude here about that business. The families, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, and whatever the families want, but I think that this is going to have to. I'm going to have to ask them. This is the important thing. I'm going to have to reach out to them and ask. But my opinion is, do not stop pushing. You have the momentum right now. You have people behind you. If you say thank you and you're like, okay, we got what we wanted, and you walk away, down the line, you're going to get stuck when that support isn't quite there anymore and you want it. And if something, you get screwed, which I'm 99% sure they're going to get screwed, right? I mean, most of us could agree on that one because you just take the 3 and you move them over, and you still got the feminist stuff going on and all this other redonkulousness. and change it over to focus on Wortman. Bad guy, bad character, true. But you can't. What the family should be pushing for, in my opinion, and it's my opinion, push for the ability to hand pick who oversees it and the mandate rules that it's operating under. It's your inquiry. You get to ask for what you want. You make the rules, not them. If it takes them 4 months to come up with a way to hide their bullshit, you don't think that they had this one sitting in their back pocket? This is 3D chess. They've got it all figured out. How to squirm, worm. So I just feel really badly. In a way, I feel victory because I can see how much political or like pressure. I don't believe in the political system, but that's my beliefs. I can see how much pressure and how on the run and how afraid they are. And just that momentum, if you keep up with it, you're going to get what you want. Probably. Otherwise, there's going to be a massive outcry from across the country because more people every day. I mean, what are we up to now? I think we're getting close to 300 people on the Discord, which I'm going to talk about after when we're done watching this. Anyway, moving on. Be careful. Be very careful. There's an article I dropped in there. Have a read when you want.
Late in the year, during the playoffs in 1981, it's the next game that I've got to watch tonight. That's the game where Rick Mundick hit that home run that basically ended any hopes of the Expos moving on to the World Series that year. I'm not sure if I'll watch that yet or not, but it's there waiting for me. 9:19 is the time right now. We told you 2 weeks ago about that old photo that's come to light purporting to show Halifax Harbor seconds after the December 6, 1917 explosion that left over 2,000 residents dead. We now know who took that photo and from where it was taken. And would you believe the answer to that question is still here in the harbor?
Okay, so sorry, I have to fast forward
on the phone this morning to tell us a little bit more about
Give
this.
me a moment. Why don't we try here?
Acadian, they'd have to have conspiring to
written a couple of books about the explosion and continues to write and express a great interest in the events of December 6th, 1917. 9:28 is our time here right now on this good-looking sunny Thursday morning. Going to be another hot one, though, before the temperature starts to cool off a wee bit for the weekend. We're going to take a break right now, though. We've got a news update for you coming up in just a couple of moments. The other side of the news, conversation with Paul Palango. He'll join me with more on the upcoming inquiry into the mid-April shooting spree that left 22 Nova Scotians dead. We'll be back after the news, and the news is coming up next. 9:32 here on a Thursday morning.
The media is involved. The media is way involved.
12:30 this afternoon. Next hour, it's an open hour. That means anything goes, and we want to hear what you've got to say here this morning. Between 10 and 11, we'll open up the phone lines to hear what's on your mind, and of course, as always, anything goes in our open hours, and there's lots we could get into this morning. Between 11 and 12, the final Thursday of the month, so let's put on our thinking caps and test your knowledge of things Canadian. Canadian trivia coming up this morning between 11 and 12. We'll crown our July trivia champion. Over the noon hour today, St. Mary's astrophysicist Rob Thacker will tell us more about NASA's Mars Mission 2020. It blasted off this morning from Cape Canaveral, Florida. Its purpose is to search for, signs of past life on the red planet. And it's also carrying with it, they call it a helicopter. It's more like a drone. A fascinating piece of equipment. And we'll hear more about the mission of the Mars rover. They're calling it Perseverance. Rob Thacker coming up with us this afternoon. And archaeologist David Jones is back with us this afternoon as well with another Nova Scotia history lesson. 9:33 is the time right now. Well, when the now announced public inquiry into the mid-April murder spree that left 22 Nova Scotians begins, we don't have a date yet, of course, for that inquiry. It was only announced Tuesday. But the questions are, who will be called as witnesses and what questions need to be asked? The focus, of course, will be on the RCMP, how the force handled the events of April 18th and onward, its actions during and after. My next guest has called the RCMP's handling of things an epic failure, and he has long been a voice saying the only way the truth will come out is through a public inquiry. He is Chester Basin-based journalist and author Paul Palango, and he joins me on the phone here this morning. Paul, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Rick.
Okay.
How are you this morning, sir?
I don't think he said that.
Same old, just plowing ahead
Yeah,
slowly. Like the turtle's going to win this race, and I'm a turtle.
Well, good man. I guess first question, how surprised were you when they announced, okay, yes, we'll relent, we'll have a full public inquiry?
Well, on one hand, when you have the prospect of the families of the victims marching on police stations, it's very un-Canadian, and it was obvious that things are going to get worse, and people like Nick Beaton and others who are just determined to get to the bottom of this
Superstar.
made it politically sort of impossible for them to continue on with the ridiculous approach they were taking. So that's one side of it. But the other side of it is I'm quite concerned still. I wouldn't be holding a parade saying, hey, we won, because you have the very same people, McDonald, McClellan, and Fitch running this inquiry. They're the people who accepted the review with all its constraints and thought this would be a reasonable thing to do. So, I'm a little sort of suspicious and skeptical about things at the moment.
But now things have, I guess we'll say they've loosened somewhat. They can now again call on witnesses, have those witnesses testify.
Oh yes, everything's perfect now.
Witnesses to testify.
Oh
yes,
yes.
Elected to do so, and with the threat of some form of punishment for anyone who might be reluctant to testify. So this is a positive step, is it not?
Well, it is a positive step, but if those witnesses do appear. And, I've seen in the past, I've written in my last book about a public inquiry that, I was going to devote one chapter to and spent 7 chapters on, because they basically used that inquiry to hide things, not to tell it. It looked like it was all out in the open, but they hid it. And I went into great detail to explain how this was done. And this inquiry was set up by Anne McClellan, who's on who's sitting on this inquiry, and who's an assistant or an advisor to the Prime Minister. Like, why is she there? I mean, people speak highly of her, but, I know in this one instance, things did not go right. And, I'd like to get into that at some time in the future, and I'll deal with that. With your predecessor, Andrew Crystal, we spent a lot of time talking about this very exact thing.
Yeah, but Michael McDonald, the justice that's going to be the chair of the review, I mean, I've heard nothing but a great deal of respect from all circles about him. So do we put faith in that individual?
Well, McDonald, people speak highly of McDonald, but there is sort of the Gerald Regan case, where the sexual assault case, charges against Regan. There are myriad cases, and there are some who believe that McDonald gave him some overly favorable decisions, which helped him get off at the time. So it's the biggest problem I have is they accepted sitting on a review where they had no powers. They knew what was going on. Now they're saying, "Oh, we'll be part of." This open inquiry. I'm still worried that the plan is to basically cover things up. And you have to understand, Rick, the RCMP, I've been reporting 100% since May that the RCMP, from sources I had, were saying that the RCMP is pasteurizing things. They're basically either getting rid of evidence, altering evidence, whatever. That's been consistent. You say, well, the police can't do that. Well, actually, they can. They're in their systems. They could alter things. I understand how their systems work. Others understand how their systems work. And they've had all of this time sort of with no one overseeing them and what they're doing. They're not saying anything. They're not doing anything. And we've seen attempts by them to put out stories that are sort of not quite the truth. This is all very alarming, and you would think at this point, with all of this going on, that the government itself, that the Attorney General would be stepping in and saying, providing some oversight over the RCMP and saying, hey, what are you doing? We're not seeing that because we have an ex-RCMP officer, Mark Fury, in that position, and he's in an untenable position. He's allowed this to go on to this point
allowed a review to be set up and then complain, oh, well, the federal government said this is what we had to do. Well, and now he's still in charge. I have a lot of problems with that.
9:39 is the time right now. We're going to take a break. We've got Paul here with us till 10 o'clock this morning, and I want to talk next about what you think the inquiry needs to deal with here. What specifically about the actions of the RCMP have given you cause for concern? In fact, have given you cause to call it an epic failure by police. Paul Palango, my guest here on a Thursday morning. It is like 9:39 right now. We'll be back to hear more from Paul right after this.
If the media can't see, I don't know what's going on here. Because if people can't see how transparent this is, like literally, it is really transparent. Right away, as soon as I heard about the public inquiry from our friend Sharon, the wonderful lady who helped us with the interview, great interview about Onslow, which of course then some things came out, of course, which just verified what she said. And she said, where was it here? right when it was announced, she's like, yay. It takes Seamus to completely burst everybody's bubble, right? Let's see, where is it here? Okay, so I'm like, yeah, the attention it's going to get, right? She's like, yay, inquiry. And then, and then I say, except for one rather major component. The same three people handpicked for the review. It's so obvious, like from word go, what the hell is going on? This thing is just a cover-up after a cover-up after a cover-up after a cover-up. If the families don't get and don't ask and don't demand, especially when they have this momentum right now, because they can only make it bigger, actually. They can only drive this to be bigger, a bigger story. People are actually talking about it. It is getting in the media. People are paying attention. This is very important to capitalize upon this moment. Right? I like strategy. Capitalize upon this moment. Demand that we set the rules. We handpick who's going to be there. We're going to decide the mandate, who's involved, who has standing, who doesn't. They have to, because it will get sidelined on purpose from the three amigos at the top, which were just there for the review. It's just a review with a different name, with slightly different powers, but they don't have to make things public and things confidential, ongoing informants. Please review the, I'll share it again, the Don Dunphy inquiry, okay? This thing will tell you how well inquiries work, okay? It's very sad. Very sad. The lawyer part is the one that's going to do, and you know what? Paul may have agreed with me on that one. Just saying.
$9:41. Paul Palango on the line with us from Chester Basin, the retired Globe and Mail journalist, has been following this whole shooting rampage since the get-go here, and you described the whole police action, Paul, the RCMP action, as an epic failure. What did you mean by that?
Huh?
Yes. Well, Rick, it is an epic failure from the beginning. I mean, it's as I wrote the Halifax Examiner recently, they did nothing to get in front of this guy from the outset. They arrived at the scene, did not, if he was there, I don't know. We don't know. We don't have a clear view of what they did then. And then the next day, they did nothing to get in front of him. 9 people died. That's the basic thing. That's the first thing we have to look at.
So who are we going to call as witnesses to get to the bottom of this? And who do you want to hear from? Who should this inquiry hear from here?
Well, there's 2 people we have to hear from that intimately knew Wordman and who seemed to be protected by the RCMP. Lisa Banfield, his girlfriend, and Peter Allen Griffin, the convicted criminal who was sort of his gopher.
Well, what does she have to offer, do you think?
She was there. She knows what was going on.
Well, yeah.
She's been sort of atypically in this kind of a situation, totally out of the limelight, seemingly being coddled by the police. I mean, we have this specter in this.
He skates pretty. We were talking about that a little bit. He likes to push the envelope, but he doesn't at the same time. Lisa Banfield is in witness protection. That is 100%. That's from the RCMP. Why is she there? She's not being like, oh, she's hiding or she's with family. No. The $70,000 car, somebody helped me with that yesterday again, who don't know how much they want. I hope they come forward with their own story. I've spoken to them because I think their own story ties to all of this. But that's up to them. This is a big story. It goes way back. Way back. Way back.
Story from the beginning where the government and the police have said, oh, we don't want to offend the families. We want to protect Lisa Banfield. She's been traumatized by all of this. Well, yeah, she may be traumatized, but I think Parker Dunham summed it up well when he used the phrase of the fetish of victimhood or something to that effect.
Fetish.
Turn victimhood into a fetish.
There we go.
We have to deal with her. She has a responsibility to society to basically tell us what happened, what really happened. I don't believe the police story. I'm sorry, I just don't believe it. It's like a fairy tale. They're using it to cover up other things. That's the way I see it, and I think that they're proving that along the way.
Well, elaborate some more on that. Why don't you believe this story?
Well, if you look at the Banfield story alone, they say she was, she showed up, she got away from him at 10 o'clock at night, then she showed up at 6:30 in the morning at Leon Jodry's house. And then she had bare feet, according to Jodry. She was not well dressed, but he didn't think, as I understand it, he didn't think that she showed signs of being outside on a very cold night. By the same token, we have Trent Nelson, who the very famous speech where or interview he had on the CBC and other TV, where he said his brother had been killed and he was in the woods for 3 hours. Dressed for the weather, and he had to go to the hospital for mild hypothermia. Yeah. There's a problem right there. Like, what really happened? Where was she really? It's quite clear from everyone we've talked to and other journalists have talked to, she couldn't possibly have been outside for 8 hours.
And she's basically gone incognito now. I don't think that anybody has had an opportunity really to talk to her at all.
Well, I put a request in with her lawyer yesterday because there are things coming up with her and her lawyer that'll be of interest to the public. That I put a request in for an interview with him or her, and I got a flat no and big no.
Oh, really interesting. You mentioned the other individual, the guy with the ties perhaps to the Hells Angels or even a Mexican drug cartel?
Yeah, and then there's Peter Allen Griffin, who the police
cartel
describe sort of behind the scenes as his workman's bum boy and gardener, and others have described him as the tender of workman's grow up that he was operating and other things like that. But he has, he served time in jail because of drugs, connections to MS-13, La Familia, a drug cartel. This was an association. We have to know from these people. But my concern is that both of them may not ever appear at an inquiry. If they don't appear, how are we going to know about what was really going on with Workman?
But are they not compelled to if they are subpoenaed?
Well, I've seen people, I've seen in previous inquiries where people either don't appear or they appear and everything is whitewashed, or they use this, as I said, as Parker Dunham says, the fetish of victims where they
breadcrumbs
basically don't ask them the questions in public because we want to protect them from the trauma. Anytime the government tells you or the police tell you they're trying to protect you from trauma, we don't want the victims to suffer, you pretty well know something's being covered up, because that's not how the real world works.
We did find out most recently some new
Somebody in
revelations
here
about
knows lots
Gabriel
about this.
Wortman, and that is this is from the redacted police search warrant documents that have been basically, some have been unredacted, I guess, and some of this information is now public, suggesting that Wortman smuggled drugs in from Maine, guns as well, hid them in places on his properties, both in Dartmouth and in Portapique. What do you make of that, Paul?
Well, first of all, you got to ask yourself, where
It's
would
very
that
minor
information
piece of the
come
puzzle.
from so
Very
quickly
minor.
after the event? It either comes from Lisa Banfield, it comes from Peter Allen Griffin, or probably from Wortman's father, who's spoken openly about their relationship and about his concerns.
Yeah, it doesn't identify the individual. It just says that the same person also claimed that he smuggled drugs from Maine for years and kept a stockpile of guns. That he also talked about Wortman as controlling and paranoid, who had talked about getting rid of bodies, burning bodies and chemicals and such. They haven't identified this individual, but he did seem to have quite a bit of knowledge about Wortman.
That's Orchard Beach
yeah,
Drive.
and then you have to ask yourself, Rick, what if this is true? He was burning bodies on his property. The last time I'm aware of something like that happening in Canada was the Robert Picton sort of murders out in BC, and then the RCMP went in there and did an extensive sort of excavations of the property, and found everything that moved to try to find any remnants to prove this case. In this example, in Portapique, they closed it off for a while. Eventually, when they opened it up, journalists like Lindsay Jones and the CBC went in there. They were able to walk through the property, take pictures, everything around there. I've seen some of these pictures, 40 of them.
Okay, so I spoke to Paul about this too, because nobody has seen anything about Orchard Beach, as in publicly, right? They're never there. Why? Let's take the message from the family member. Everybody who saw the warehouse is dead. What are they hiding? Certain people make videos that go down the road. They don't show you that one place. Why? The warehouse, very important. Because if the media had it, which they did, why didn't they show you? Instead, they showed you the photo op 200 Portapique with the car they left behind, just so it looked nice. Just like Enfield. All a fraud.
At a time showing that, the elements of everyday life still in those places. It didn't look like the places had been turned over. Stuff was lying around, and then they knocked it down. They bulldozed it down. It just smells. There's something else going on here. We've talked about it before. The way the police are comporting themselves is not the way the police would normally comport themselves in this kind of a situation.
Yeah, those documents, as I mentioned, indicated that Wortman had been smuggling drugs from Maine for years and kept a stockpile of guns hidden and drugs hidden in places. But when asked in June whether police had found any evidence that Wortman had any income generated by any illegal activity, RCMP Superintendent Darren Campbell said no.
Why are we playing this game? People aren't getting it. They're not getting it. And the media perpetrates this thinking, oh, this is just strange. They seem to be lying. I don't understand. Why are they lying? Because the whole thing is a fucking lie. It's all a lie. I know, I keep talking about the switch. It is just a switch. Turn it on. This is not mistakes. These aren't, we're a bungling little RCMP force. Poor us. No.
And yet this
And remember who's their boss. Honestly, one day somebody will go back, I'm sure, in those early videos, and they'll see like, holy fuck, these guys were talking about all of it right away. right away, almost. Many components. The drugs, the motorcycle gangs, the money, the warehouse, no pictures, Paul's interview, blah, 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 whatever. It's just news now? No. Old news.
This information on this search warrant suggests just the opposite here. So one has to again wonder who's telling us the truth and who's not.
Well, that's, I've written that the RCMP throughout this case has spoken in shades of truth. They put down some of the stories I've done as fairy tales, but it's quite clear they're not telling the truth. They try to sort of, as the word I used before, pasteurize this thing and say, at the beginning they said, if you recall, even go back farther, they said, oh, well, Workman had no known contacts with the police. This is all a surprise to us. And gradually this has started to unravel bit by bit by bit, that we're finding out more and more and more about this guy and how he was sort of connected to organized crime, that he was involved in all of these things. That, one of the things that I pointed out from the beginning
the
is
witness
that
protection.
this may well all be involved in run out of New Brunswick by the RCMP in New Brunswick, that he may be a confidential informant for the RCMP in New Brunswick. And that the RCMP in Nova Scotia has basically pretended we don't know anything about it because it's all in New Brunswick. We're not dealing with that. And even these latest revelations make that more so suspicious, because he was doing this, smuggling things out of Maine, coming across the border into New Brunswick. There's a very likelihood that he, as a number of policemen have pointed out to me, an ex-policeman have pointed out to me, he was doing so much that he likely got busted somewhere, maybe crossing the border or in New Brunswick. Something happened in New Brunswick. He got jammed up by the police. They turned him into an informant, and away we went. That's a plausible scenario given the information that we're given. And it's, the RCMP is in a bad situation here. And what bothers me, and getting back to what I said before, where is the Attorney General, the Justice Minister in this? Serious questions are being raised about the performance of the police, what they did before, after, and before, during, and after. What are they doing? Is there any sort of control being brought by them on it? Any sort of concern being expressed by the government about what the police are doing here? I don't see a bloody thing.
Boy, I tell you, I'm anxious to start hearing a testimony, though. That could be a while yet before that gets underway. But I want to ask you as well, just reading a news release here from Nova Scotia Feminists Fighting Femicide, issued a statement on the matter.
No.
And that they believe that there's a feminist twisted.
I don't even want to play this. I don't even want to play it. I'm going to try to fast forward through that. Sorry,
This
just give me
whole
a
thing.
moment.
This is not per se a feminist issue. They talk.
Told us in the past about the RCMP response that night, that perhaps officers held back.
Want to listen to it? Please have at. I'm not going to help this
get into a situation.
get any airplay.
You've talked to us about Heidi Stevenson's
There's the
situation, the RCMP officer who was killed during this incident.
Whatever, it was like 43 minutes.
Of these things, Paul, will this inquiry get to answer those kind of questions?
I'm not going to listen to quacks.
I would hope, but
Disinformation,
I think that the inquiry
RCMP.
and the inquiry has to be more than just ask questions, try to be sympathetic, to all the various concerns here, and keep their eye on the ball. What really happened? One of the things we're going to need here is the RCMP has what is called a PRO system. And in the PRO system, that's a recording system, records everything that goes on. We have to get someone, or whoever's running the inquiry has to have an expert to be able to decipher what's going on in that system, because there are things in that system that can be sort of manipulated. We can't lose sight of that.
Really?
That we have to look at the detailed records of what's going on. And the other thing that we're going to need in this, one of the things we're facing in trying to tell this story is the thin blue line of policemen. And, policemen from all forces basically band together and don't want to say, and especially in these times with all the racist allegations and things like that, excuse me, police don't want to say bad things about other places. And this applies to that's what concerns me about having Leanne Fish Fitch sit on an inquiry. She's a former police officer. She worked with the New Brunswick RCMP for most of her life. I don't trust her being there. Sorry. But we have to be able to go into what is going on here. We're going to need the help of police and ex-policemen to tell us the real story. I mean, they have a moral and ethical duty to stand forward. They're not just there to protect the RCMP. The government shouldn't be there to protect the RCMP. We should know. Somebody should be recording what's going on and telling me, Stephen Marr from Maclean's, Greg Mercer from the Globe and Mail, anyone, what is really going on here and what they're trying to cover up. Because it's quite clear from the stories we've just talked about them sort of not being able to get their story straight, that there's something going on.
Peter just tweeted to say, are the cops lying to cover up a screw up, or are they covering up to keep a criminal investigation from being blown? Good question to ask.
Well, I think they're covering the screw up. If there was a criminal investigation ongoing and Wortman was a CI, that case is blown already. I mean, everyone pretty well knows if I was a Hell's Angel, for example, and Wortman we had some contact with Wortman or Peter Allen Griffin or whatever, we pretty well know the police were onto us. So I think that investigation, if there's an investigation that's blown, I can't see them doing a serious investigation here. They say they're doing a serious investigation, and this is another point we should make. In the Mayerthorpe shooting, where 4 Mounties were killed in Alberta, the RCMP went out of their way to basically go after people who were associated with James Roscoe, the shooter, putting one in jail for 10 years who had an accidental sort of encounter with him, and another one in jail for 15 years. Well, the two people who are closest to this guy, or the nearest people to him, don't seem to be investigated.
Yep.
In fact, Peter Griffin put the decals on the car, and right away the RCMP exonerated him. So, he didn't commit a crime. Lisa Banfield, for example, was with him for 20 years, and they've said right away, we've got to protect her. She's a poor, hurt soul. She may well be, but the public needs to know what she knows.
Indeed. Well said. Well, I'm anxious to see this thing start and finish. Paul Palango, appreciate, as always, your time here this morning. Thank you very much.
Anytime, Rick. Thank you.
Have a good day, sir. Bye-bye. That's retired Globe and Mail columnist Paul Palango with us here on a Thursday morning. Very interesting indeed. And now it's your turn. You have something to comment on something that Palango said? Maybe you've got a new issue to raise with us. Anything goes in the next hour. We're going to the phones between 10 and 11. An open hour is coming up after the news.
Okay, so there you go. I'll tell you, I get really frustrated. Because this is just, it's hard to watch people chasing their tails when the answers were already given. But what do? You just keep repeating the same thing, I guess. Kendall said it there, right? And you're talking about, in my opinion, which I think is fairly well researched, you're talking about a cop. Wortman was a cop. I've said that from day one. He's a cop. And they were doing an investigation not investigation. They like to use when it's this kind of scale, the operation, I don't know, poop shoot, whatever, brown loop, whatever they want to call it this time. They become criminals. They're in bed with criminals. They commit criminal activities. You've got cops that are going back and forth between actually being criminals, not even conducting their operation properly. They're dealing drugs. They're having their kids deal drugs. They seize drugs. One of the cases I was looking at yesterday, haven't even really started, but start looking at the cocaine seizures down there. They're pretty interesting. Somebody who I'd like to contact me again, please, because my memory, I can file things away, but I don't know who necessarily says what, and there's lots of different people, obviously, in this puzzle, which actually I should address before I get off the air. And say good day to you. Good boiling day. Cocaine seizures. Cocaine goes missing. People skim cocaine. Cops skim cocaine. Certain players' names keep coming up, and they're going to tie back to other people's names, tie to very big names, not bikers, much bigger. The story I was reading yesterday was 2017 September, 273 kilos, one person arrested. Another story said 2 people arrested. 2018, there was a conviction for said seizure. 250 kilos. Oops, we lost 23 kilos of coke. And 1 person who was charged. This happens quite regularly. Coke disappearing. Somehow it's getting sold. Cops that aren't so good. Playing both sides of the fence. Undercover operations which just further these behaviors. Entice. They're falling prey to temptation, greed, and things like this. Not that they don't get paid lots of money, because they do. Lots of money. But the people got to speak. It's absolutely necessitated. And cops, good cops, have to come forward and not be afraid, because yes, some of these people involved in this story are extraordinarily scary individuals. Who the fuck cares, man? Bring it on. You can't knock us all down. It's a bowling alley. With that attitude, fear somehow disappears. Now, the other thing I wanted to address, and perhaps some of you are in here right now, because I'm seeing some stuff I'm not particularly fond of that causes me, how about this, causes me to have concern. I'm seeing a lot of Smurf stuff going off. There's something over here. There's, we've been talking about it, but it's there. It is most certainly there in the Discord, the Doxcord, right? I've got a few people who try to feed me disinformation. I know it. I'm not going to call them out. Okay, because that's not the way I do things. People need to be able to discern for themselves. If somebody is steering you and telling you, no, it can't be, think where that person is coming from. What is their motive? Are they really looking for the truth? Or do they really want to try and spin a narrative? This is very, very important. Any of you who are in here who have names that are repetitive, I would like to know. There are a lot. We have, say here, 2 Basils. Mark Rod has somebody else who's also mirrored his name. Some of them are quite bad. You have a lot of them. Let's see. I don't know if you guys can see that because it's grayed out because whatever. By the way, the Paul Palango in there is not Paul Palango. So just so that straightens out everybody's stuff. But if you go through this list, which I was last night, because I get messages from certain people from different accounts with the same name. And I'm like, who are these people? Are they the same person? Steve and I were talking about this last night. Let's see, where are some of them? Oh, it's interesting they're not showing up here. Krista, here we go, 2 Kristas. Bing, bing. It could just be that there's 2 people with the name Krista, but some of them are absolutely not. Here we go. Here's Mark Rod's other account. Right? Who is that? So then when you message and you see the name Mark Rod, who is it? Okay. How many mirages do we have? 1, 2, 3. Which one is, are they all different people? I know that they're not, actually. This account and this account are apparently the same person. They message me the same stuff with 2 different names. Why? If you have duplicate accounts, please delete them, because it confuses people. Not a blind eye, not a blind eye, not a blind eye. 3 of them. It's interesting, there's way less of them today. I wonder if there's something. Sally J. Scotia Gal. Oh, no, these are 2 separate ones. These are probably 2 separate Sharons, but Sharon. Sunflower. Here you go. Now you can't tell me these are different people. Sunflower 9402, Sunflower 9402, Sunflower 9402, Sunflower 9402. What's going on? You need 4 accounts? Really? Tommy Gun. How many accounts? Tommy Gun, Tommy Gun, Tommy Gun, Tommy Gun, Tommy Gun, Tommy Gun 9788. Tommy Gun 9788. There he is, right there. What about all these other Tommy Guns? Are those you, Tommy Gun? Or is that somebody hijacking your name and posting in your name? Wheezy. There was more last night. It was weird. When we were talking about it, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, Steve pointed out, and I'd seen it before with the one person messaging me, and I couldn't figure out how to message them, which they were messaging me the same stuff. And I'm not going to call out who that was. I will not call people out, but they were trying to steer me. I know it. And if they're watching, I know you're trying to steer me. I know when you try to steer me. It's sad. But that's what the RCMP, the government, and whoever the fuck their bosses are, who I think some of us have got figured out, do. They plant disinformation. They lie. The whole thing's lies. Lies. So this is how they keep up things. So, when you're seeing, like, that's my point. You'll see somebody post something, and then you'll see the same name, but they're posting something else. And you trust the one, but you don't trust the other, and then you're confused, and it fucks up. Do you understand what I'm saying? The posting, and you don't know if you're replying to the right person or is it not, and it's supposed to be there to sow disinformation. So anybody who does have duplicate accounts, please delete them. I'd appreciate it, just so that kind of narrows down who are real people versus not. Tommy Gunn says he has 2 accounts. If I log in, okay. And it could just be a technical thing, but clearly somebody has your name and they've used it 5 times. That's crazy. And you're saying, I think you're saying that's not you, right? Yes. Well, perhaps you can have a discussion with Todd with that. I won't talk about that on the air. Janice, hello. Thank you for being honest. I believe they will uncover pedophilia. I'm not going to go that far, but I do understand that's a very serious problem. Do I think that that may be part of the criminality that's mixed into this? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I think that it could have other ramifications? Oh, we have some dirt on you, blah, 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 blah. Who was the officer the other day busted down there with the child porn? RCMP, Nova Scotia. I mean, these people are getting all the time. Child porn. Like, you guys don't have a lot of officers. Yet there seems to be a lot of crime. Go away. No, I don't want to play your games. Nova Scotia watchdog charges RCMP officer with child porn. I mean, what is going on here? Other than do. You know, some people will call it Satan. Some people will call it other things. There is true evil. You don't have to be a religious, Bible-thumping, church-going person. You don't. There is true evil in this world. It doesn't have a conscience. You don't have to be religious. It is absolutely 100% there. Understanding that is like probably, I would say, 80% of the battle, because you'll save yourself a ton of time once you've got that one figured out, right? Because the questions, even though I still have them too, periodically my mind will be like, why? Because I understand who I am, and I wouldn't do these things. And then I'm like, well, why? I wouldn't ever do that, of course. But a truly evil person, truly evil, will do it. Because they don't care. Family, under the bus, oh, no problem. They don't have a conscience, and they'll keep going with their trash. Let's see what Nova Scotia's is up to these days, because it's pretty spooky when you look at how much stuff that crime is going on. And this is not just reserved for Nova Scotia. So please don't mistaken me for picking on Nova Scotia, because I'm not. But Nova Scotia is a small province. It's not a very big place. The shit, which is all police. Look at these. Just crime after 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 crime. Are some of these not legitimate? Yes. Some of them are people, trying to get out of something and they make a complaint. But there's some pretty serious ones in there. Gang rapes, child molestation, lots of drugs going missing. What was the article? Okay, let's see if I can find it. This guy's clown, whatever. He's a piece of work. Let's see. It's a great article. Okay. Loading. Halifax police still count accounts for hundreds of drug exhibits. Halifax Regional Police Jim Perrin said items likely misplaced or mislabeled, not misappropriated. Really? You don't think he has a horse in the race, right? No, of course not. Jim Perrin, well, he has no horse in this race. Doesn't matter. Halifax Regional Police admit there are still hundreds of drug exhibits that remain unaccounted for following a detail. This is just Halifax. Well, my volunteer time is calling. I'm going to have to go. Admit that there are still hundreds of drug exhibits that remain unaccounted for following a detailed audit of evidence lockers in police headquarters. A final report of the audit was presented Monday to the Board of Police Commissioners, a civilian oversight body of the police force. The report found that of the 293 missing cash exhibits, 255 were located. Okay, so let's see, what's that, 38 missing? And when does the audit take place between? Of the 310 missing or misplaced, this, I don't like these words, large drug exhibits, only 68 were located? $242 missing drug exhibits. That's not a very good percentage. Really, really not good. And when they're talking large drug exhibits, they're talking large drug exhibits. And those are missing entirely. That doesn't count the skimming that's going on, like the one I was just talking about before. 23 kilos just missing. That's not missing. That just never gets reported. So you see the story back in September 2017. It is an older story, but this was the first one that I came across. I haven't even started, really. I did a long time ago, back at the beginning of all of this journey. Video 1, 2, probably in there. Lots of good stuff in these older videos, I'm telling you. And just 140 of the 2,628 missing or misplaced small drug exhibits. A lot of missing drugs. Oh, sorry, we just lost that. Oh, sorry, we just missed him. Oh, sorry, we didn't seal down the road. Oh, sorry. Do you see what's going on here? Oh, dare. Sorry, you know, we lose things. How much do you lose in your life? Are you still losing your mittens? Police lose mittens. Toques, you know, when we were kids, because we're young and dumb. Police are still in there, or so they say. Oh, just missing. How about stolen? How about resold? How about drug dealing cops? Missing cash? This is just Halifax. Superintendent Jim Perrin, who has no horse in this race at all. None at all. It's just his job. He wouldn't want to say that he had a shitty problem in his department, would he? Some of us like to admit our responsibilities. And when we do something wrong. And some of us, like everybody almost in the story down there, like to hide. Bill Blair, Justin Trudeau. It's not a party thing. Don't get me wrong. This is not a party thing. You substitute any fucker in this story. Boom. Fill in the blank. Prime Minister blank. No, you got a new video out. Okay, awesome. Very few people. I get like all of my channels that I used to watch are gone. This is so funny. I get nothing. The officer in charge of the audit said he's confident none of the items were misappropriated. None of them. Except you have convictions over in the shit. You have convictions, Mr. Burnett, Mr. Basso, etc. How can you be confident when you know that to be a lie? He's not confident because he's just lying. Lionize. And that most of it likely was mislabeled or misplaced. Large, huge quantities of drugs. Huge. Hundreds of kilos. No. We just, it's stuck in my seat cushion on my couch. I don't know where it is. In the case of the cash exhibits, he said the money was deposited without a record of which case it was connected. I'm going to be a total smartass. Maybe it went over to the Brinks facility, where other cops can use it, like Mr. Wortman in his undercover operation running out of New Brunswick for the RCMP. Who paid for the fucking warehouse? Who's the cause of all of those deaths? Does that spell it out pretty clear? Maybe I haven't been clear about this all along. Problems. I don't understand. Am I communicating in a different language? In the case of the... at no time through this process do we believe anything was misappropriated. I would say, please look at your shit. Even though this is your police force, just with a different name. The shit. 80% cops. Do you think they want to convict their friends? Nova Scotia is a very small place. Very small. In comparison, it's smaller than my city. Most people know one another. They know people who know people. Do you think that they're going to want to throw their friends in jail? When it gets to this level at the shit and somebody's actually getting charged, very, very serious. As in, there's no way they can squirm and worm out of it. But they'll do their damnedest to do it. Look at what's going on right now. Oh, don't worry. We'll pick our compromised friends. We'll just move them around. We have our 3D chess games. Blah, blah, blah. Let's continue. Nothing. No worries. Nothing is going missing. By anybody. Are you certain of that, sir? Because even the CBC, who is owned by who? Oh, that's right. The same system. You think they might be indoctrinating you with shit? Maybe just a little bit. Maybe just a little more than a little bit. Because behind all lies, there has to be grains of truth. Because if it was full on lying, you'll never believe it. But if they give you a little bit, oh, somebody got busted. Look what we're doing. We're doing a good job. Then you'll believe it. You'll see the article in September 2017 and you'll be like, 273 kilos, 2 people. Okay. Then you'll come back a few months later. Your brain has been traumatized with the world. Mortgage payments, jobs, kids, blah, 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 blah. Right by this point now, you pick up the paper and you're like, oh, 250 kilos, 1 person charged. Nothing to see here. This is what they count on. Poor memory. This is why I always say archive every single article and use tools to file things away. I am a terrible, utterly terrible organizer. There is fucking mountains of paper in my house and my computer. Whoever is going to deal with that, there is one person, and they are listed in my will when I die, because there is a lot of shit on this computer. By the way, if you try to hack it, it's already backed up. So don't try. Offline. Every day. Oops. Anyway, let's continue on. But I encourage everybody to keep track of their stuff. Watch it, and you'll see the lies in action. The media doing it. And not just CBC. Big conglomerates. Post media. Those of you down in the East Coast, you got Saltwire, you got big, huge media institutions. You could take all of the media in this country, have them sit down at a table. You're probably going to have what? I'm going to say 7 people, maybe, at that table. You don't think they're friends, and you don't think they have bosses? Misappropriated by anybody, parent told reporters outside the meeting. If we had come across that, we would deal with it. And we would have taken it very seriously. So what did he just tell you? It never happens. Let's continue on. The problem first came to light May 2015 when police officer, Gary Basso, he's not a good one, was charged with removing material from the drug evidence locker. I thought it never happened. I thought it never happened. What are you talking about? Is somebody lying? Could you put leather here? Could you put Trudeau here? Could you put whoever the fuck's going to be head of whatever fucking parties now? Bill Blair here? Mulcair, anybody. Just fill in the blank. Evil. Lying bastards. This is called a cognitive dissonance again. No, never happens. Absolutely does happen. Even the next paragraph. It does happen. But the man in charge, he's like, no, never happens. While the charges against Basso were eventually stayed. This opens up the other part to what's going on down there, to what's going on all over the place. A June 2016 audit revealed the scope of the problem of the missing drugs and cash. What does drugs really do? Like hard drugs like this? They wreck society. Right? People are so traumatized, they're doing all kinds of things that probably in abusive ways that they wouldn't do because the world's fucked them. And they're like, I'd rather live in some alternate reality. The system's built that way. Here, we'll supply it to you. We'll give you the shitty system. We'll fuck you up. We'll traumatize you. We'll mess you up. And then we'll also give you the drugs. And then the crime. Don't worry about it. This is all good. I'm going to mention a saying. I won't digress too much into my other stuff because, again, that's not important right now. Purification through transgression. Anybody ever heard of that? Does that even make sense in your head? Anybody who doesn't know, I would suggest, I think there's going to be a couple people in here for sure that know what I'm saying. Perrin said, A lot of defense lawyers have reached out to the news after the audit broke to see if the missing evidence might help their clients. Not going to touch it. Not going to touch it right now. Can't. Oh, when I come, I'm coming hard. Don't worry. Quote, I think anytime something goes awry in policing, sure, your reputation can take a hit. Do you think he wants his reputation to take a hit? Do you think he sounds like a responsible individual? He'll lie to your face. Superintendent Campbell. Lecky. Campbell. Leather. Trudeau. Blair. Perrin. Who's the bastard? All of them. I got so like, fuck, man. I don't think actually I could take any of my old videos out anymore. Steve got a strike for putting something into unlisted yesterday. Boom. He's out of commission. I suggest please subscribe to his channel. I'm gonna go and do a stream on his channel. You know why? If this kind of stuff. I'm just gonna post. I'll be over there. Come join us. Because he's almost at 1,000 subs. I want him to get to that 1,000 subs because then he can live stream with his phone. You can help him out with that if you head over to Steve LTT's channel listed below and just hit the subscribe button. He's almost there and he makes good stuff and he's helping out a lot. But it should be organic. You should like his stuff. I wouldn't say, oh, let's go and do something you don't support. It's obviously very topical and people want to talk about it. But I've also said before that we're humans. We're part of that. We're people that are doing these processes from time to time. And there's going to be mistakes. Do you see what they tell you? Have you heard this term before? Have you heard this term in this story, the 18th, 19th? Mistakes? When they're really backed in a corner? Oh, poor RCMP. We'll hide in our bubble of protection that we built very carefully in the war room at 10:01 or whatever time they picked. Is that clear? That clear. From the word go. Boom. Problem. War room. Strategy against you. But they're you. Hey? The government is my government. I'll drop this link in too. The link doesn't work. I'm sorry. Here, I'll go and get it right now. Go and check out his stuff. I'm not gonna, he said that to me last night. I'm like, dude, we can get that real fast. And he's like, I want it to be organic. I want it to be people who want to watch my stuff and who are interested. And I totally agree with him. You don't buy or pump fake numbers. No. Do it real. Do it honest. Do it true. But he does put out a lot of great stuff. And you guys all know how much stuff he is doing. 975. You only need 25 more. Sometimes it's even good. I like to listen to people's differing opinions. I subscribe to channels that I totally disagree with because I learn things. Because somewhere in there, they tell truth too. That's the way it works. And we all learn. This has not been comfortable. Sorry? Stolen drugs is not comfortable. Crime is not comfortable from the police. Pardon? It's criminal. It's evil. Not comfortable. Not this word should not be used. This is psychological warfare. It's garbage. Perrin said the new audit procedures and new training have been put in place to ensure everyone handling evidence appreciates the need to be meticulous about the documenting and accounting of it. Or are they building a system that kind of probably lets that stuff go missing? Easier. And just, you won't notice it as much. I'd like to know who pushed for the audit. This has not been comfortable for anyone involved, said Steve Craig, a municipal councillor and chair of the Board of Police Commissioners, who, of course, wouldn't have any horse in this race at all. Steve Craig. No, it wouldn't benefit him at all to make it look like there's no problem. And guess what? It shouldn't be comfortable. No, it should result in people in prison, fired, cleaning toilets. Frankly, if it was me, expelled to some iceberg up in the north. Police Chief Jean-Michel Blaise assured commissioners that we have been confident in the last 6 months that our process are very, very tight. You know how much drugs has gone missing since then? Oh, just a little bit. Just a little bit. But don't worry, it never happens. At no time. Oh, but then it does happen. And this clown, Mr. Gary Basso, is one of the shit that needs to be, fully turfed from society. He finally got busted. He was involved with some other things. Burnett. There's a ring of these clowns running around. Doesn't matter if you're in Halifax or in Truro or over there in Tatamagouche. There's a whole series of this in the police, and it actually makes the other policemen afraid of them. They are afraid, which they don't need to be. But they built that environment, right? They made everybody afraid of them, or so they think. I'm not afraid of them. Not because I'm a keyboard warrior. Bring it on, seriously. Come to my house and try. Try. Because there's lots of other people who are right beside me. Shitstorm. Brewing. Can't touch it. Do. Right? Can't touch you. Do. But they have you thinking. And the police, sadly. Gary Basso. What a piece of work. Beats up a homeless man. That was his final straw. That was his final straw. There you go. Bing! Kendall's awesome. Awesome. You guys are all awesome. Burnett just took the fall. Burnett, not a small player. Staff sergeant taking falls. For who? Who's higher on the food chain? How far up does this go with people who are getting off from missing evidence? Certain judges, politicians, not just in Nova Scotia, all across this country and down in Ottawa. Bible Hill, Toilet Hill. And that's why they're afraid, because people are starting to actually take that rock and pick it up, and there's a little bit of light shining in, and they're scurrying. Cockroaches running away. Scum. And what is Mr. Basso? Let's see what he's. I'll do that and then I'll sign off. Thank you very much for joining me today. I think Paul ventured into some areas that are a bit. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that he has the exposure that he does. I'm very glad for Tim Bousquet to have him on our team. Kind of quiet in the background, isn't he? Pretty awesome. Oh, you like that hair? There we go. Sometimes I can clean it up. Okay, now Basso. Let's try Basso, homeless man. This is nice, right? These are good people. Halifax police officer sentenced to 3 months in jail for assaulting homeless man. Yum. Look how long he was running around dealing his drugs in his drug gang. And, you know, somebody pointed out, who's kind of in the know, I'm not going to call them out. They're in here. I don't know. I always have to determine, you know, what people want me to say versus what not. But, well, he doesn't have the badge anymore, so that's kind of the end of him. I would say no. He has less, but he's a full-on criminal drug dealer. He just doesn't have quite the access that he did before. He still has all his friends, right? And he's already a full-blown criminal. Halifax regional police officer has been sentenced to 3 months in jail for punching a homeless man outside of a shelter last year. Did Amy sign off? Everyone, take care, Amy. Have a super day. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to watch everything going on. Gary Basso, 39, was sentenced in Halifax Provincial Court on Friday. Probably, maybe by a friend, maybe not. Maybe this is a very good judge. I don't know. But there's some not good ones in the story. He was convicted of assault, maybe like those three amigos. They're not judges, but well, one of them. Handpicked trash. Handpicked for review, handpicked for inquiry. Moving along. Was sentenced in Halifax Provincial Court on Friday. He was convicted of assault causing bodily harm after he struck Patrice Simard in the face in the parking lot of Metro Turning Point. Yay. So this guy has, he's really down on his luck. He's at the homeless shelter. And he has cops beating him up. Basso is also prohibited from owning and accessing firearms for 10 years. Like that's going to stop him. And like he would get charged from his friends. He and his defense team declined comment after sentencing. Really? He probably has a written statement comes out with. One of many. Howdy hitters. Simard, who was intoxicated at the time of the assault, suffered a broken nose. The incident was captured on a 17-minute security tape from the shelter. Oh, yeah, no, it's not the police who came forward with it, right? Because it's not their responsibility. They aren't responsible. They tell you, what was it? Nothing ever happens here. At no time throughout this process do we believe that anything was misappropriated by anybody. The problem first came to light in 2015 when police officer Gary Basso was charged with removing material from the drug evidence locker. No problem here. Basso did not accept responsibility for his actions, saying it was part of the job. But Justice, who? Laurie Halfpenny Macquarie. I've seen that name before. Have you seen that name before? Bejan out, Halfpenny Macquarie in. Funny. Halfpenny Macquarie. Drugs. Cops. Deluge of sarcasm. You know who that person is, don't you? Basso's lack of acceptance was not a factor in the sentence. At 3 months, pounding a homeless man, down on his luck, only came to light because somebody saw the tape and dropped it. Basso left court without commenting. Defense lawyer James G. Comantino also declined comment. Basso was sentenced to 90 days in jail to be served on weekends for assaulting a homeless man. Oh, don't worry, you can just go to jail for a little while. It's okay. We have this person here. No, there's nothing to see here. Oh, that's nice. I like that.
Any comment, Gary? Any comment at all?
Oh no, he's a tough guy. He's a real toughie. A drunk, old, homeless man. Wow. I really kind of hope he doesn't get down on his luck. That would be quite horrific. Perhaps somebody will punch him in the head. I don't advocate violence.
You have any comment, Gary? Any comment at all?
No. Nothing to say here. His written statement will be forthcoming somewhere on some Facebook page. Crown attorney Sylvia Domoransky says it felt a criminal record was warranted to send the proper message. No, actually, I thought that you should give him a commendation. That's really nice. You steal drugs. You are involved with people much bigger who steal drugs, who are involved with people who are on Interpol's most wanted list in South America. No. Nothing to see here. I'm leaving some things to look at. Just not saying it outright. If a police officer steps outside of the lines and does not do what they're to do, that is serve the public interest and protect the community, there's going to be repercussions. I'm glad the court agreed that repercussions here is jail, criminal record, on the weekends. They built a really good system all around. Government, who owns the police, paramilitary intelligence organization, drug dealing, nothing to see. Media propaganda wing, pretty awesome. Basso will be serving his time on the weekends. Oh, no pina colada for him. No pina colada. Out of jail in Cape Breton and will report to jail February 7th. He will be free during the week to punch homeless men and sell drugs for his bosses. The sentence comes with the condition of not owning a firearm. No, don't steal drugs. Don't punch homeless men. And also, don't own guns. You know what? There's something called selective hearing. My grandfather had it. Sometimes he would implement it. Oh, sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear you. Oh, guns? No problem. Drugs? I didn't hear anything about that. I can have guns. I can have drugs. The sentence comes with a condition. Oh, but 10 years later, you can own a gun. Legally. You think a person could? Well, fuck you. Lifetime ban. Regional Police Chief Dan Kinsella, who is kind of a good player sometimes, but he's silent, and his silence is complicity to me. He knows lots. He doesn't say anything. No comment, written statements. Can't talk about what the police officer that we had let you guys know. We don't know. We won't deny. We won't affirm. We will just obfuscate and tell you something else, like, it's a nice warm day outside, Dan Kinsella said in a statement sent. You know, real people talk. Liars don't have to hide behind pieces of paper that they draft. Notice how everything, like I say, everything in this story, written, scripts written, everything written. The lengthy interview, which never aired, which then got subsequently inserted, written. To Global, that HRP respects Friday's decision related to the sentencing of Constable Gary Basso. It respects it. Who the fuck are they? Police? You don't respect the court? Were you actually considering not respecting what Halfpenny Macquarie told you? Huh? Halfpenny Macquarie. We recognize that the conviction of one of our officers for a criminal offense is deeply troubling. Have a boo at these. Those of you down there. Have a boo. Make for lovely bedtime reading from the shed. And like I said, you have to counter this with, this is their friends. If they're going to charge these people, they're either not their friends, as in, we'll let a few of them go, or they're, just a fraction of what's really going on. The shit, the justice system, the politicians, the drug dealing. Our officers' conduct is critical in building and maintaining public trust, and we expect our officers to remain above reproach. Constable Basso has been dismissed from Halifax Regional Police effective immediately. Oh shit, I gotta run. We do have to go try to help some old people. But the story is very big. Very big. And it goes all the way to the top. Lucky's boss. Blair's boss. And beyond that, it goes to Trudeau's bosses. Don't allow yourself to get snowed. You guys are waking up to what is really going on. And it's dirty and it's nasty, but it's true. Those kind of statements here aren't. They're psychological warfare. God bless. Have a great day.